Welcome back to Reclamation Corner. I'm Mark Thrasher. Kind of dressed for success today. We're going to be doing some nasty work, some power washing, draining some fluids, and I tend to get it all over myself. So I put some clothes on that don't really matter today. This is my 1981 380 SL. I picked this car up in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the main reasons I want to talk about this car real quick, just be very careful when you go out to purchase a car. I did purchase this one mainly because I just love the blue. I'm kind of a blue guy. But this car had all kinds of problems. I was told it ran. I got there, it didn't. So I kind of bought it knowing that. I've taken a few things out of this car. Got something just covering the intake. I guess I do that just out of habit. But take a close look at these camshafts. I haven't got the other side off, but look at this. Looks like it's got barnacles growing on it. Looks pretty bad. You look at this car, this is just kind of indicative of the way the car was cared for. This just is absolutely filthy. The motor looks horrible, but if you look down in here, I'll get out my little flashlight that I always carry around. You'll notice it has a brand new water pump on it. Everything else around here is incredibly filthy with the exception of that water pump. It just looks brand new. When I pulled the dipstick out, drained the oil out. Well, you can't really see it. It looked like milk coming out. What I'm guessing happened here, get this dipstick back in so I catch it. What I'm guessing happened to this car, it's got a couple of new belts on it. It either broke a belt, the water pump quit, and they continued to drive it to the point that it overheated. That expanded a little bit and it blew the head gaskets. Well, that allowed water out of the radiator, because it's pretty much dry, to run out of the radiator through the heads, and it deposited in the motor, pumped it all through the motor. They just didn't decide it was worth fixing at the time. So now we've got all this corrosion. I'm guessing when I get this side off, it's going to be the same. But when you go look at these cars, just know that most of the time they're not being totally factual with you. They're not telling you the truth. And the cars can really have a lot of issues. In fact, I put a 27 millimeter on the crankshaft and a breaker bar on it, and I couldn't even get it to turn. So what I'm guessing is when I get those heads off, I'm going to find that there's rust down inside the cylinders because it dumped that water down in there. So thinking about all of this, what I did was I did find on eBay, I found a motor. It was up in Appleton, Wisconsin. I purchased that motor. I've got it back here at home. My wife and I drove up there. I picked it up, and it's filthy, but it's in pretty good shape internally, I think. And I'm going to be able to take these two motors and make one good one. So what we've got here is the motor that I found on eBay. Now it's really nasty, but I'm pretty sure internally, because I put the wrench on it, it turns over fine. It actually has fairly decent compression, but we're going to power wash it. You'll see that it's just completely nasty. I actually made these, let me get this hose out of the way. I actually made these little covers up. I ran these up on the 3D printer to cover up those ports so I can use the steam cleaner here. And I'm going to be able to use the power washer. I've got these all covered up, and I'm going to be able to get this cleaned up again so I don't have to be just so filthy. But really thinking this one is okay internally. Kind of got my bucket down here. I'm going to be draining the fluid out of it here in a little bit, and like I say, I tend to get off. But you know, the body is nice and straight. It's got some sun damage, but I can work with having to do some repainting. But I absolutely love the color of it. All the pieces are here. The interior, pretty typical. Let's see if I can get a shot of the interior here. The interior is pretty typical of finding a car in that really hot climate. Time takes its kind of takes its toll on things. But actually the paint's looking good with the exception of right back here. on the deck lid. I'm guessing this thing's set out somewhere. You can see the paint's kind of peeled a little bit, but we're going to be able to fix all of that. I'm not really too concerned about this. Strip this down and repaint it, but pretty much I'm totally happy with the car. Just has some issues, but I enjoy working through those issues. Okay, I got the car up on the lift now, and I thought we'd just kind of look at the underneath side real quick before we start draining fluids. As you can see down here, just all kinds of nasty. This belt is not supposed to be loose like this. This is, I'm guessing, because the tensioner up there was shot. I did get the exhaust off, but I have, you know, there's just all kinds of linkages that are going to have to come out so we can get this motor out. You can see the top of the transmission or the bottom of the transmission is kind of a mess, but underneath the car is actually pretty nice. I mean, I'm not unhappy with this at all. I'm not sure I like being deceived when I bought it, but you know, all in all, the underneath side is looking pretty good. We do have a tire over here. We couldn't figure out why it was so hard to roll it, but let me see if I can. Yeah, this tire doesn't want to roll at all. That brake is hung up. You can notice this side rolls nice and smooth. So we're going to have to clean that up so at least we can move it. So once we get the motor out of it, I can put it away for a while we get the motor all redone. So anyway, we're going to go ahead. We're going to drain all the fluids out. So in order to drain these fluids, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take that lower radiator hose off. I'm just loosening the Gates clamp here so I can get in there with either a radiator pick or with a screwdriver. And it's going to start leaking just a little bit. Make sure you have your bucket ready. It just kind of went everywhere. There was actually some chunks coming out of this because it was just so old and nasty inside that engine. We're going to look down inside the bucket here in just a second. This should just be radiator fluid, but as you can see, it's just inundated with oil and all other kinds of nasty stuff. This is not good. You can see here I've just got it all over the floor. Kind of wore part of it. Also, you're going to have some transmission coolant lines you're going to have to take off the lower portion of the radiator. Just be very careful with these so you don't break something off. Once I did get them off, I always put a plastic bag around them with some zip ties just as an added precaution to not get anything inside of there. We're also going to have to take out a little bit of the air conditioning system here in front of the condenser. This is just a tank. It's on the driver's side, the left side here in the United States. There's just two bolts that you're going to have to, or nuts you're going to have to take off, and they're just like a flange nut, one here, one here. Plus all this structure in front of this, which just comes out. It's supposed to be 10 millimeter, but once you get that out of there, you can just lift that condenser along with the radiator. And they do come out separately, but once you get that out, you can see how easy this is. That radiator just lifts right out of it. I think there were two bolts, one on each side hole. Well, this little guy has some issues, but that's kind of the way I like it. I like to get a car. I love the feeling of bringing them back and to their original glory. I try to keep them as original as I can. The one thing I usually do change is the radio system, but we're going to try and keep this so the antenna works with the new radio. But you know, we're a little ways from that now. Right now, what I'm trying to do is just make sure I'm going to get the engine out of here and kind of show you what I'm doing when we go through it and we rebuild the engine. Thanks for joining us.